be trying to sneak up on you. Got one on me right here. Oh my god, yo, this.
Alright, pushing out.
Oh, one shot.
Disable it.
Faster.
Immediate medical assistance needed.
Hey YouTube, Be Righteous here from Identity. I got another Division 2 video for you. So, I just want to say to all my subs and viewers, you guys are the best. Just 2 weeks ago I was at 1,000 subs and now I have reached 2,000. You have no idea what this means to me. You know I try my best to be original with my build videos and I will keep them coming as long as I can. I'm honestly just humbled by this, so thank you so much. This rifle build I'm going to show you today has gear and a talent that I'm using for the very first time. Before now I felt like there was absolutely no reason to run it, but the potential for greatness that this brings has forced me to. And if you like the urban legend, then you'll love this. If you're new to my channel and interested in builds from DPS all the way to skill, which encompass both PvP and PvE, then please drop a like and hit that subscribe button. Unlike the urban legend, Obliterating AIM doesn't necessarily require as much precision, accuracy, or composure, but instead aggressiveness, tenacity, and grit. Not saying that focus isn't important, but headshots aren't the focal point in this build. Anywhere you hit them hurts. More importantly, the synergy of this build fits right into the meta perfectly, so it just makes sense to run this. The purpose of this build is to deplete the enemy's armor, which will then trigger a talent that will significantly increase your burst damage, enabling you to put them down a lot faster. In order for this to work at its highest potential, you must stack as much crit damage as possible to maximize the effectiveness. Out of all the attributes, I believe that crit damage is one of the most difficult to stack, which means if you do, then the fruits of your labor will yield exceptional results. 60% crit chance, 100% crit damage is what I recommend, and I'll show you exactly how to achieve that or close to it in this description. So let's get right into it. Okay, since it's a rifle build, of course we're going to be using the sharpshooter specialization. So when you seen the thumbnail, you saw that there were 3 weapons that I was pointing at: the Diamondback, the M1A, and the Urban MDR. This build is very versatile because you can use whatever rifle fits the appropriate challenge. I initially made this build for clutch berserk players, but now we have a couple of different builds that are presenting other problems, like the tank shotgun build as well as negotiator's dilemma. So just use the hard hitting rifles for the more tankier enemies and the better handling fast firing rifles for the more nimble ones. Point is, you can use the one that fits your playstyle. I've used the Diamondback, and with its exotic talent goes perfectly with the crit damage and also has the possibility to 1 and 2 shot players. Now you know the Diamondback randomly marks an enemy, and when you shoot those enemies that are marked 5 times, it gives you a buff which gives you 100% critical hit chance for 15 seconds. So if you have the critical hit damage, then those shots while that buff is active are going to be insanely strong. But that exotic talent takes more meticulous planning, so it's better to use in PvE. But the crit damage just normally that the Diamondback gives is really good. I've also used the classic M1A. This has a decent fire rate and is extremely powerful with its raw damage capabilities, but I prefer the Urban MDR. I even tried the ACR SS, which some of you guys suggested I try in the comments in the Urban Legend build. It fires super fast with Allegro, the fastest firing rifle. I think it's the fastest firing rifle, but it just doesn't hit hard enough for me. The MDR to me has a great balance between fire rate and damage, and is also my favorite rifle, which is probably the reason why I use it. And the Urban MDR also has, like before, boomerang. Now if you like I said, if you liked the urban legend, you're gonna love this because it does more damage. And of course, you remember what boomerang does. When you apply a critical hit, it has a 50% chance to return that critical hit bullet back to the magazine and gives you extra 50% increased damage. And I have it with Allegro so I can fire as fast as possible. Now this build is more so damage based, so I run it with the Merciless for my secondary for the explosive damage so that I can proc spark. And the pistol, I just use it for the holster talent, protected reload. Okay, the build I have, I really like the way I set this up. So here's the build, and in reference to what I said earlier about the brand set I've never used, well, it's Douglas and Harding. It's a 3-piece, and it's one of a few items that's going to help you reach that crit damage you need. I also like it for the accuracy. Coupled with the Araldi, it gives you a total of 20% accuracy, which is always good. For the mask, I have the Douglas and Harding mask. It's the named mask called Punch Drunk, and it has perfect concussion, 20% headshots when doing headshots. Like I said before, best in slot for headshots. It came with 38% damage to elites, and I rolled 9.5 crit chance on it. For the chest piece, I have an Araldi, pristine example with perfect vigilance. It came with critical hit damage, which was great, and I got lucky with this 21% critical hit chance on the chest piece. Now I'm sure some of you found a god roll piece like this. If you did, then this is what you need. You need critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Don't worry about weapon damage on this build because you have to try and stack as much crit as you can. Douglas and Harding holster. All you need on this is critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Now this is cool because I thought I wanted a offensive mod slot, which they do have these holsters that offer offensive mod slots. But if you have any of these reload speed mods, they are really good. Sometimes I dread the slow reload on these weapons, and this 6% just helps out. It just gives me a little boost when I need it. The backpack, I have an Overlord armaments with a little bit of weapon damage, critical hit damage, and I rolled 31,000 armor on it. It has spark and hardened. Now it was nice that this backpack came with critical hit damage because, like I said before, it's really hard to find crit damage and stack it on your build, so anywhere you can find it is good. And also another reason why I like using the urban or fast firing rifles is because you can proc spark a lot faster, and what this does is stack the damage quicker, which gives you a better advantage from range. Alright guys, for the gloves, I got a Douglas and Harding gloves, and this is the main part of the build. Okay, talent I use, I think it's slept on, and I think it's starting to get a lot of traction now. It's called Obliterate. Depleting an enemy's armor grants 30% critical hit damage for 15 seconds. Now 30% crit damage might not sound like a lot. That's why I was saying that you need to stack as much crit damage as you can so you can have a high amount of crit damage natively on your person before this procs. So in the intro, I stated that I have 100% critical hit damage. Well, 99. But you know, I'm rounding off to the nearest 100, and I have 60% critical hit chance. That is nuts for a build like this, because when you proc Obliterate, see what critical hit damage does, it increases the damage of your critical hits. So the more you have, the more damage you're gonna do. And so if I'm critting 60% of the time, Boomerang is giving me more damage also. So I'm getting the damage buff of Boomerang returning the bullets, and I'm getting the damage of Obliterate when I break their armor. So that's a total of 130% critical hit damage that I'm doing to these enemies. Now the way that this connects with this meta so well is that there's so many people running around here with low armor, so I could break their armor in 2 shots with this weapon, with the Urban MDR. With the fast firing weapons, I can break their armor in 2 shots. Not to mention the classic M1A or the Diamondback. I mean, the Diamondback one-shots people, and if they're tanky, you can get their armor down pretty quick. So like I said, if whichever weapon you want to use, if you want to just annihilate people, use the classic M1A. I mean, I've done it, but it's just not really my playstyle. And the Diamondback, I think, is really good, but it works better in PvE engagements. So each weapon has its role, you know, but this build works really good against like squishy people, because once you break that armor, you get such a burst of damage that allows you to put them down so quick. And another thing that helps, the reason why I think the rifles are really good with Obliterate is because rifles come with 15% critical damage already. So you have a leg up when you look at it that way. And I was playing with my build a little bit, and I was changing some things around, and I ended up, and I know some of you have done this, you had a good idea and you ended up destroying something that you just thought that would make your build a lot better. And when I did that, it just kind of messed up what I wanted, because I used to have knee pads, Douglas and Harding knee pads, and Overlord gloves, and the Douglas and Harding knee pads had composure on it, so I was able to do a little more damage. But being that I don't have any heals, Fox's Prayer, Overlord armament knee pads, they work good for me. You can never go wrong with these, and these are the knees I was talking about with 11% total armor. But you could never go wrong with Fox's Prayer. You know, perfectly entrenched, headshots from cover give you 15% armor, so you know, I don't feel too bad about it. Okay, so for my weapon mods, I added crit chance mods in some of my slots, because when you're making a crit build, weapon damage is not as important as it would be if you were making a weapon damage build. So I just use a couple crit chance mods to help me reach that. So if you have any of those, that's great. They were selling some of these like a couple weeks ago, and I scooped them up. And for my skills, I just used the booster hive. Before I was using the chem launcher, but the booster hive helps a lot with when you're using a rifle. The booster hive helps a lot when you're using a build like this, because you want to be nimble and you want to be at a distance at all times. You don't want them to close the distance on you. So if you're using this booster hive, you could keep the fight at your advantage. And I don't really use the booster hive that much, but ever since I started using it, I realized I'm starting to really like this thing. You know, it doesn't only increase your movement speed, it also increases your weapon handling, which is also good for rifle builds. So keep that in mind. Second skill, I use the defender drone, and the defender drone is so good in PvE, and it's also really good in PvP because of the mods that you get. The free mods, you get 80% duration and 80% skill haste. And when you don't have any skill power, these mods are great. And that's the build, y'all. You know, this build is for burst damage, and burst damage that they won't expect. They will not expect after their armor breaks for you to do that much damage to them. It's a little bit more difficult when they're aiming at you, but if you can catch somebody unsuspecting, they won't be able to recover from it. They just won't. And if you hit your shots right while you're face tanking, they also won't be able to handle you, especially if you're using one of those harder hitting ones. Now, the versatility is not only with rifles. With this Obliterate Douglas and Harding setup, you can make an AR build with this, which will be really deadly. Because remember, ARs do health damage. So if you couple this Obliterate and crit damage with the health damage, then it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. So if you guys want me to make an assault rifle version of this, then comment down below and let me know, and I'll do it for you for sure. But anyway, thanks again for all your support with me reaching 2,000 subscribers and all. Like I said, I just appreciate y'all so much, and I hope that you stick with me, because I'm going to keep playing Division. I'm going to keep making builds for you guys, and they're going to be original. They're going to be from me, and I believe that you'll really enjoy what I have coming in the future. If you enjoyed this video, and if it helped you out in any way, please drop a like and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Be right out.